My entitled sister stole and gave away my puppies after we had a minor disagreement. And now, even a year after the incident took place, I still refuse to talk to her, as I am still furious for what she did. And right about now, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk or not for choosing to stay away from her and not hang out with her ever again. Here's what happened. Also, this story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. So I first want to start off by saying that all the names in this story are fake. This happened about a year ago, but I'm still upset about it, and my parents think that I should talk to my sister, who I will call Nikki, and their rationale is that a lot of time has passed. She has said she's sorry, and we do have a new dog. So for a bit of context, I had an argument with Nikki that led up to the point of her going to my parents' house and stealing my puppies the night following our argument, and then giving them away the next morning before I or my parents could stop her. Now, for a bit of clarification about my relationship with Nikki, she is the daughter of my dad's ex-wife and is not his biological daughter, but my parents refer to her as my sister since my dad helped to raise her. Our argument first started when we got back from a trip to another state for a funeral for a relative of Nikki's mother. And FYI, this was a trip I was forced to go on. I said I wanted to walk over to my parents' home to visit them and see my puppies that were both Rottweiler and Cane Corso mixes. And these puppies were gifted to me from my parents after I moved in with them. Well, Nikki was in a bad mood because she didn't have enough money to get some substances and got mad when I told her I was going to visit my parents. She told me, "Why don't you just leave then and go back in with them? Just run back to mommy." And she said this in a really rude and mean tone. Now, I didn't respond and I just went to my parents' place, and my mom immediately noticed that I was upset. I told my mom and dad about what Nikki had said to me, and I didn't know what to do. Nikki was always quick to be mean when someone did something that she didn't like, and she had expressed that she wanted me to move in with her and her mother for a long time, and had basically kept me in their house by gaslighting and guilt-tripping me into agreeing to stay. This happened every time I wanted to go back to my parents. They would both get mad and guilt-trip me into sticking around. I knew if I told her I wanted to leave, she would get mad, but my parents comforted me and told me to just tell her that I was leaving and then bring my stuff back. Then they left to go to the evening church services. So I did as they advised. When I told Nikki that I was going back to my parents, she did her normal routine of getting mad and telling her mother. They then ganged up on me and started to get mad at me and gaslighting me, but I just kept packing my things. When I gathered all my stuff and was walking out, Nikki really started to freak out. She started to yell at her mother, saying stuff like, "Make her stop, make her stay right now." Her mother tried to order me to stay, but I just ignored everything that they said. After I got all my stuff inside my parents' house, I fed and watered my puppies before I started unpacking my stuff. My parents wouldn't be back until later because they often like to go to one of their church friends' houses for a few hours after the church services ended, so I decided to go to sleep. Now, I am a heavy sleeper, and I don't wake very easily, so I didn't hear Nikki come around and steal my puppies. They both knew her and they liked her, so they didn't bark or anything like that when she took them. The next morning, I checked my phone and I saw a bunch of messages from Nikki that started off with her being mad and demanding that I come home, to then her telling me that I owed her money for taking me on a trip, and then to the pictures of my puppies and the final message saying, "You won't see your precious puppies ever again." After reading that last message and the picture of my puppies, I began to freak out and I ran outside to find both my puppies were gone. My parents calmed me down enough for me to explain, and they began to call and text Nikki. She texted back that she had already given them away. She wouldn't tell us who she gave them to, so I just cried, and I just blocked her and her mother's number. I did not want anything to do with them. Well, I guess she realized that she messed up after I wouldn't talk to her for days afterwards because she came around with a dog that she adopted on my 20th birthday and tried to talk to me, but I didn't say anything to her, though I was happy to see the dog. She tried to make me forgive her for a long time, and I finally did, but I still don't hang out with her like I did before. Now, my parents want me to start talking more with her because it's been over a year and she said that she misses me, but I don't want to be around her. She still has moments where she gets mad at me over little things, so I don't want to hang out with her at all. Now, I will speak to her and talk to her when other people are around, but I refuse to do that while alone. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Nikki stole and then gave away your puppies, all because you refused to do exactly as she said. And that, in my opinion, is unforgivable, and that would 100% 100% inform my decision of whether or not I want to be around Nikki. Because sure, you have to talk to her around other people, but you do not for a second have to hang out with her ever again. Like, that's unacceptable and so inappropriate, it's not even funny. And the fact that your parents are like, oh, come on, Nikki apologized. It was only a year ago. Like, are they crazy? Nikki sounds like an awful person. Who's to say she wouldn't do something awful again if you let her back into your life? So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think you are completely justified by cutting her out of your life. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that I will no longer participate in family vacations if his ex-wife is also going to be present? Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that all the names in this story are fake. While on study abroad, my husband Robert got his foreign girlfriend Elizabeth pregnant. Their relationship was rocky, and they've been broken up since Tim was about 1 year old. I met Robert when their son Tim was 3 years old, and Robert and I have been together now for about 13 years. When I met Robert, he was upfront that Tim always comes first, and unfortunately is a package deal with Elizabeth when Tim is old enough for solo international travel. This was unfortunate because at the time, Robert and Elizabeth absolutely hated each other. My in-laws have always paid for plane tickets for Elizabeth and Tim to visit. Elizabeth and Tim usually visit for 2 to 3 weeks every year, and Robert always requested my presence during these visits so that I could build a relationship with Tim and to have some moral support when dealing with Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth has mostly been nice to me, although it is superficial. I mean, we are definitely not friends. She's fine with the in-laws because they are very nice people who just want a relationship with their grandson and would never jeopardize that access. Robert and Elizabeth's relationship gradually improved, and by the time Tim was 7, they were on friendly terms. Being required to spend 2 to 3 weeks every year staying in the same house as my husband's ex has always been a minimum comfort for me, and at times extremely difficult and very painful. But I tolerated it without any complaint, without fully expressing how hard it was, because I felt that my main job here is to support Robert. I've been holding out for the goalpost Robert identified early on, that when Tim is old enough to travel alone, presumably Elizabeth will no longer come with him. Well, that time has finally arrived. Tim is 16 years old, traveled alone to visit last summer, and it was awesome. However, Elizabeth said she wants to come visit again this year and continue doing so every other year, with no end date in sight. My parents-in-law will never stop paying for plane tickets and never suggest Elizabeth not come. In fact, 2 years ago, prior to Tim's solo trip for the first time, they assured Elizabeth that she is always welcome even after Tim is an adult, that she is a part of the family as well. Statements and events like that have amounted to death by 1,000 cuts, in which I've been experiencing serious depression, all surrounding around Elizabeth's visits. I feel like the goalpost I was holding out for has suddenly vanished away. So I told Robert that I will no longer be present for the full family vacations when Elizabeth comes. I will hang out for 1 or 2 weekends only, and he knows I'm fully on board with vacations that do not include her. Now, he is hurt. He says my lack of presence shows everyone, including Tim, that I don't care. But I say that a stepmother cannot form a relationship with a stepchild when the mother is always present. And these visits are causing me extreme emotional distress, so it's time that I take care of myself because no one else is considering my emotions here. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, I don't blame you for a second for thinking about yourself first. You have dealt with this for so long. You've dealt with her visits for such a long time, and you're now feeling the effects of depression and like a decline in your mental health. In my opinion, that's more than enough reason for you to put yourself first for the first time and just escape this lady altogether. Because you're right, you are just the stepmother, you can't control this dynamic, and it really seems like everybody else is fine with this except for you. But I would personally not allow this to inform your decision of what you think is best for you. Because you've got it right, it really doesn't seem like anybody's thinking about your emotional needs, and if no one else is going to do that, then it's time for you to step up and take care of yourself. I recently got promoted to a more senior, higher paid position than my husband, and now as a result, he's treating me incredibly poorly, and at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I both have steady corporate jobs. Recently, I was called into my manager's office and offered a promotion to a more senior role. It came with a nice pay raise, and I was really delighted to accept it. I came home that night buzzing with excitement about telling my husband. I was just really proud of myself, and I wanted to share that with him. We've also got 2 kids. One is 7 years old and one is 10 years old, so I was sure the extra money would be good news. When I told him about the promotion and pay raise, his reaction was less than excited. After a pause, he said congratulations in an extremely flat tone, all before going really quiet. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not so full of myself that I was expecting a song and dance, but if our roles were reversed, I know I would have been a lot happier for my husband than he'd been for me in that moment. His reaction was so underwhelming that I kind of lost my excitement for the news, and I didn't say anything else about it that evening. The next day, my husband was noticeably quiet and seemed oddly sullen and hostile when I spoke to him. It's just like I'd imagine a teenager would talk to a teacher that they didn't like. He wouldn't tell me the problem, but after a weekend of sulking coupled with oddly passive comments about work, I basically knew that it had to do with my promotion. I didn't want to believe that he would be that way, especially since he has a great job that pays really well. The first day at work in my new role was super exciting, and in a surprising twist, my husband said he'd cook a special dinner, which really made me feel like he had gotten over whatever jealousy he may have felt. However, when I got home, my husband wasn't there, and upon calling him with no response, I got the following text message. He said to me, "Your big job must have been tough, so I didn't want to get in your hair." He had gone out drinking and came back very drunk. Frankly, I was really angry by this point, and I asked him why he was suddenly treating me like garbage. He got really passive-aggressive about my big important job, and upon asking why he'd promised me a dinner and then just left to go drinking, he smirked at me and said that was my responsibility since I was apparently wearing the pants now. The only reason I didn't scream at him was because my kids were sleeping upstairs. That was 2 days ago, and yesterday he was pretty much too hungover to even function. So today I plan on confronting him. My question is, how can I best go about doing this? Something needs to give here, because I won't continue this environment around the kids. His actions have been so clearly messed up that I don't even know where to start. He's never acted close to this before, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. It's pretty obvious, and I think you know this at this point, that your husband is very clearly jealous about your new job. You must be making more money than him or something like that, because your husband is acting as if this is the end of his world. Like he's going out drinking and getting entirely wasted, all after finding out about your big job. And that is seriously such a shame, because like, why would you not celebrate that? Why would this guy not be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is great for the both of us? Because it seems like this guy is like acting completely the opposite of what would be appropriate. And here's the thing, I get it. For a lot of guys, unfortunately, your job is everything to you. And maybe this guy just doesn't like the fact that his wife makes more money than him or something like that. But even then, like, why does he care about that so much? That doesn't negatively impact his life. Like, why is he acting like this is the end of the world while also treating his wife like absolute garbage? Like, this guy is really acting like a loser, and this is not fair for you in the slightest. He's treating your partnership like a competition, and that is honestly so disappointing. So hopefully when you do confront him about this all goes well in some kind of way, because this man is acting like a giant baby, and the way he's treating you is incredibly unfair. Am I the jerk for suggesting another soccer mom remove her daughter from our competitive team and instead enlist her in the social league, since she very clearly doesn't know what she's doing, while also taking away from the team's competitive dynamics? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'll start off by saying that as parents, we should be able to gauge our children's abilities and what programs are the best fit for them. We play on a competitive recreational indoor soccer league, with all of this occurring during the off-season. The Parks and Rec in our area offer 2 different forms of indoor soccer. The first one is the social indoor soccer, and this one is the least competitive, and it's more about just having a good time, as well as being laid back and learning at a slower pace. The second one is the competitive team, and it is self-explanatory. Our kids, by the way, are 9 and 10 years old, and they really want to win. These girls fight hard and truly give it their all. Now, one player on the team literally just runs around flailing her arms in the air. She does not know the rules of the game. She will drop to the ground on the field and start throwing a fit if the other team scores a goal. She'll even start screaming that they're about to lose. It is such a distraction to all the players on the team, and even the opposing team gets confused. They have her in the defender box most of the time, and when it's time to defend and match up, she shakes her hands in the other kid's face or just runs the opposite opposite direction. It's just hard to watch this as a parent. Also, a factor in this is that we pay a few $100s in fees every season, and some of us help sponsor as well. So we are invested in being competitive. Now, I get it, this is not professional soccer, but we still take it pretty seriously. Well, I spoke with her mother recently who just laughed and giggled about the girl's behavior. She would just call it cute and how she's having a good time out there. Now, I did not pry into her medical history because that's none of my business, but the mom voluntarily shared with me that her daughter had ADHD and was thinking about taking medications. Personally, I think there is something else going on with the kid, but again, that part is none of my business. I then suggested to the mom that maybe the social league would be a better fit for her daughter, that what she was doing on the field and during practice was so distracting, and it honestly was very counterproductive. I said that it was detrimental to our team, and it was hurting our chances of even making the playoffs. Well, when I said that, she snapped at me hardcore and said that this is just little kid sports, and it shouldn't matter at all, and that I need to keep my thoughts to myself. She also doubled down and said that she won't go to the social league, while also saying, "How dare you even approach me with that opinion?" So honestly, am I the jerk here? Because seriously, other parents and even the coaches have shown frustration, but I'm unfortunately the only one who's even spoken up. What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think you have every right to be concerned about this behavior, because like you said, it is distracting from everything you're trying to do. Like, that girl absolutely belongs on the social league. She can still have a good time and obviously learn the rules of the game, or even just learn how to play in the first place, because what you've described is basically her not knowing what she's doing. And that's not fair, because this is literally the competitive team. These are people who want to take this game seriously, and they are there for serious reasons. So for this kid to be screaming, "Oh, we're gonna lose," and also her running away from opponents and making a giant hole in the field, like, that's not helping the team at all, and it's really gonna hurt their chances of making any kind of progress. And I'm right there with the original poster, because I think they get it. This isn't professional soccer, but they did sign up for the competitive league, so they would like to have that competitive experience to some degree. And if a team member is not taking this seriously and they literally don't know how to play, then in my opinion, I think it's a good thing the original poster made that very clear to them. Now, I totally get that maybe the original poster should have had the coach handle that, and they themselves should not have gotten involved, but it seems like the coach and everybody else involved is like not brave enough to say anything. So to that end, I don't blame you for saying anything, especially when you've put in all this money and time into this competitive league. Am I the jerk for freaking out on my mother-in-law after she tried to get involved in personal matters of my own that had absolutely nothing to do with her? Here's what happened. So my husband and I took some time out from his mom last year because she was interfering with my personal business that had no impact on her whatsoever. Here's basically what was going on. I was contacted by some biological family members of mine who are my late father's parents and two of his siblings. They had reached out to say they regretted letting me and my younger sister go into foster care when we were 6 and 2 years old after our parents passed away. My sister passed away in foster care, and then I was left totally alone with no family. So having these people reach out now that I'm 29, and after not seeing them for well over 2 decades, it honestly all really made me mad. The reason for them not taking me in is that I was my father's affair baby. He was married with kids when he and my mom started an affair, and his marriage to his ex-wife only came to an end when my mom was 6 months pregnant with me. The fallout meant that my father was hated, understandably so, but so was I, and so was my sister when she was born. I have very vague memories of his older children, and none of them were very pleasant. My father's parents and siblings all sided with his ex-wife and the children once my parents passed away, and decided that foster care was the only place for us since we had nobody on our maternal side. As a side note, my mother was a foster kid herself. I saw my grandparents and aunts and uncles at my sister's funeral, but she was buried by the state since none of them claimed her body, and I was just a kid myself, so I couldn't do it. So I had no desire to welcome them into my life or to forgive them and form any kind of relationship. Now, with that context out of the way, this is where my mother-in-law gets involved. She started making comments that I should give them a chance or I will regret it. She said, "How am I ever supposed to know my siblings if I don't make any effort?" Well, my husband told her to stop, and I even told her that my supposed siblings weren't even a part of the group who reached out, and from the limited info that I heard, they have no interest in establishing anything with me, and it sounds like they feel like I should have passed away with my sister. My mother-in-law said it didn't mean I shouldn't second try, and then she wanted to know their name so she could talk to them herself. Now, after her not letting up despite my husband telling her multiple times, we decided that we are definitely going to take a break from her. Then, a little over a week later, she showed up and told me that she found them on Facebook and was waiting for them to accept a message so that she could talk to them and fix things for me. I lost my temper and I told her to stay out of things that don't concern her. Well, she told me not to curse at her, which I definitely did, and that she was just trying to help. My husband was furious with his mom when he got home. They argued, and then his brother got involved and basically said I should have just shut the door in her face and let my husband deal with her. So now I'm wondering if he's right and if I was wrong to engage and say what I did. What should I do? You are definitely not the jerk. There's no way you're possibly the jerk here. First of all, this is all privilege information. This is a highly sensitive situation that does not concern anybody but you and your husband. So the fact that your mother-in-law would try to get involved and be like, don't worry, I'm gonna fix it, especially with people who literally abandoned you when you needed them the most, is so disgusting to me, it's not even funny. She's treating this like some kind of drama that she can fix, when in reality, these supposed siblings don't care about you. Even the people that reached out to you don't care about you in the slightest. They just feel guilty 2 decades later after they gave up on you and your sister, because that's exactly what they did. None of them were willing to take care of you and your sister, and they just said, okay, off to foster care you go. Like you didn't have anything to do with that scenario. So the fact that they would do that to you and your sister is so disgusting to me. But even with all that in mind, and even with your mother-in-law most likely knowing all of these details, she still felt entitled to try and patch things up with this extended family, even though these people are the furthest thing from family you could ever find. So this behavior from your mother-in-law is entirely inappropriate, and if that happened to me, I would have definitely lost my temper as well, because this is literally none of her business. And the fact that she tried to interject and force this situation to get fixed in some kind of way, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.